but now we're going to go into the panel about food waste. So we have 4 panelists today. Among them, we have Charlotte Aschim. She's from Ctrl. So please welcome him. Great. Then we have Paula Capodistrias. She's from Matsentralen, which is a network of food banks here in Norway. After that, we have Bendik from Too Good To Go. He's a mat reader. How do you say that in English? Food saver. Great. And then, as our last panelist, we have Eva from NMBU. She is the coordinator for organized dumpster diving community. Yes. And now, last but not least, I'm going to introduce our moderator, who is Thrane. She is the author of a cookbook called Middag for 25 Kroner, if my Norwegian is right. So please, come in.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're moving from plastic to food. And we all have some specialists on food waste. I will begin by asking some questions for you to introduce yourself and what you are working on. So, Paula, if you want to start. Matsentralen works with food producers and processors and also wholesalers to help them reduce their food waste. What do you see, what is the challenges with food waste in these sectors, and what is the role of food banks?
Well, Matsentralen is what in other countries could be known as a food bank, but we have taken the concept of the food bank a little bit further because we are not just working to reduce hunger, but we're also working to reduce food waste. Because what we do is we rescue surplus food from the food system. That means food that would otherwise be thrown away, and we in a way take it back into the system from where there is a lot of surplus food in the industry to where there isn't so much of, that is charity organizations that help people in need. So we like to think that we're sort of a safety net for all of this surplus food and food waste that the food industry unfortunately struggles with.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of food waste in these sectors?
I see a lot of challenges related to the creation and the management of surplus food. I see that the food industry is doing more and more actually to reduce food waste. I see that there's a lot of innovation and a lot of really smart and creative people doing things to reduce food waste, but I do see a lot of challenges. Not everything is reducible, to put it in a way.
We're on the way to a better
Definitely
solution,
on the way, yes.
Bendik, would you introduce yourself and tell us about food waste in restaurants and also in supermarkets, and how Too Good To Go works to alleviate the challenges in these sectors?
Yeah. Of course. Yes, so I'm Bendik Walderhaug. I am working as head of sales and movement coordinator in Too Good To Go. And so you're asking specifically about restaurants and supermarkets. Well, I think it's kind of a common challenge for the whole food industry that estimating amounts is and will be in the foreseeable future a challenge, definitely within the current system. And Too Good To Go is actually as simple as a marketplace that connects businesses with consumers and gives them an opportunity to announce their surplus foods, and presents with an opportunity to meet up at the restaurant or grocery store upon closing time and kind of relieve the business of their surplus food. So it is essentially just facilitating a transaction between a business and the consumer, but it's also a handy tool because it kind of it's not disruptive. I would say it is kind of hinges on to any other initiatives a store might have to reduce food waste. So it's a tool that you can use at the end of the cycle, no matter what you do to prevent food waste in the first place, kind of. So it's not exclusive to in any way. It's not like you. I mean, you can work with a million ways to reduce food waste, and you can still use Too Good To Go. So that's why it's very easy.
It's just a new solution that we didn't have before, so it's
basically.
Yeah. Great. And Charlotte, if you could tell us about yourself and also about your company, and tell us what led you to believe that technology can be a solution to reducing food waste in the sectors that you work on.
So, yeah, my name is Charlotte, and I'm the CEO and founder of Ctrl. So we work with preventing food waste, mainly helping our clients have total control over their food inventory based on expiration date, making sure that they use or sell their food faster and prevent food waste from happening. As you've heard from Paula, she works with Foodbanks and charities, and Bendik works with kind of the last mile, which is more towards consumers, whereas we work with prevention when the food gets to, for example, the restaurants or the grocery stores. So current solutions for preventing food waste is usually extremely manual. It's done by pen and paper, or it's just walking the aisles of the store or the restaurant storages, looking for food that is about to expire or has gone bad. So there's not a lot of technology solving that issue at the moment. That's where we come in and just help them digitalize their inventory, help them get total control over the expiration date, and just simplifies their day-to-day routines when it comes to managing food and inventory, which is extremely important and extremely fun to work with. And you see results immediately, which is good. And we're kind of an add-on and helping those guys get maybe less food waste, but there's more than enough food waste to prevent from happening. So it's good that we're more people working on this subject. That's for sure.
Yeah, thanks. And then we have Eva. You are the coordinator of Norway's biggest dumpster diving community. Can you tell us about your experience with this and how it has become a part of your daily life as a student?
Yes. So I'm representing a bit different kind of organization than you guys. I'm part of a dumpster dive community in Ås. We've been working with food waste for a bit over a year now. In 2019, we were picking up food 220 times, so that was a lot. And we're working in the way that we're organizing dumpster diving and picking up food from the supermarkets that they otherwise would have thrown away. And then every day seeing how much food that is actually thrown away and trying to do something about that as consumers, really, yeah.
Great, thank you. I think we have a lot of different views on food waste from all, and it will be interesting to hear your stories and answers on these questions that we have. And now I will ask some more general questions, and you can feel free to answer all of them, and I hope that all of you have something to say. I think you have some solutions and views. Yeah. Okay, so given the critical moment we're in on climate, what do you think is the best solution, the best way to get a sustainable development in the food system? Does anyone have the right answer? It's a big answer, yeah.
Yeah.
No
Well, food waste, and reducing the consumption of animal products were named as the two biggest measures that could have the biggest impact, actually. Did you want to add something? What were you thinking? Yes, but the IPCC report named both of those as the best measures. And as I said before, I guess that when it comes to food waste, reducing food waste, it really is about, like balancing the food system. There are areas where there is too much, there's areas where there isn't, where people don't have access to food. and it is related to this
balance the resources
and balance of the system. Yeah. So I think that reducing food waste is actually a way into the whole issue of unsustainability with the food system.
Yeah, I agree. Food system and less meat is the two best solutions. But also, what do you see as the best way to tackle the problem? Do you need to hit the consumers or the production, or Bendik?
I'm quite confident this is everybody's problem. And one of the main solutions, if you kind of try to have the whole view on it, is obviously that we need to cooperate across every sectors, and we need to build a bridge between consumers and business. We can't be pointing fingers and say that the majority of food waste is occurring in this sector or this sector. It's really, it won't take us anywhere, you know. And I think we've come quite a long way in the past couple of years for both industry and consumers to kind of acknowledge their role in this. You know, it's not something that just happens in stores or restaurants. It is equally a big problem in your own kitchen. You know, so of course. Acknowledging that as with all the great climate issues, we're in this together. You know, that's really the key, I guess. Yeah, from my perspective.
Yeah. Just add on that. I think just being more aware of that our current system, our current food supply chain or value chain is not sustainable as is. So just being aware of the problems and the possibilities to actually do something with it. And I think technology in this area would play a big part in helping prevent food waste and making the entire value chain more sustainable. Because it's a traditional industry with a lot of stuff that needs to change to be able to be more profitable, more sustainable, more valuable, and more impactful in the future.
I think it's important to see how, you know, we're talking about the food system and really try to understand what that means. It's a system with a lot of parts that are interacting with each other. This food system includes the farmer, but it also includes the consumer. It also includes the people working, serving in a cafe. It really is all of us, because when we have these discussions, we might just naturalize it and just assume like, oh, when we talk about the food system, it's just those big food corporations that we talk about, and they need to get responsibility for it. But we create our food system. They sell what we want to buy, and so on. And we create these habits together. It's a very, very complex system. So I completely agree. It's everyone's responsibility.
Yeah, we need to cooperate. We will talk more about the different sectors and levels that we need to make a change. Yeah. So what do you see as the best behavior and guidelines to do from the corporate side to tackle the impact of our production and consumption on the environment? What is the corporate side of this, and how can we help?
I can start in terms of big corporates and big players. If you look at the Norwegian food system, for example, you have big players. I would say innovation is needed. Of course, it's hard maybe for big companies to innovate, and then we need the strength of smaller companies and players outside of the corporates. So I think just collaborating, as mentioned earlier, plays a big part. Utilizing the fact that, especially in Norway, because we're good when it comes to technology, we're good when it comes to innovation, just making sure that we help each other out, because we're all on the same planet, we all have the same challenges, so we need to work together, because it moves much faster if we do. So I think that's part of like just opening that mindset, and also making sure that the awareness about the problem, that it's a lot of potential to solve this problem, and just making sure that we're not getting kind of knocked down or negative about it being too big of a problem that we're not able to do something, but actually seeing solutions and potential and helping.
I think we need to talk more about the solutions and not only the problems. Yeah, I agree.
But I think that we also need to know what we're talking about. And I think that more and more companies are committed to, when in the topic of food waste, of quantifying the food waste. Norway has been doing great work actually through several research projects on food waste since 2015. Yes, and this takes time because we have to understand that, you know, first we all need to agree what is food waste, how are we going to quantify this food waste, what are we, you know, how are we going to test the different solutions for this. So I think that information and data and good management of this data, it's also very important, especially in a phase of prevention of food waste, is to have total control. Yeah. It's the key. Unless it's too good to go.
I agree with Charlotte's approach a lot. I think for big corporations, it's definitely a question of inviting smaller companies, innovators, entrepreneurs along on the way. I think the time for you know, big closed-off corporations who are you know, fixed in their mindset of kind of developing all solutions themselves, that's over. You know, it's you can't really match the speed of innovation when you have someone dedicated full time to solving this small niche of a problem. You won't kind of match that in a big corporation like the ones we're dealing with. So I'll actually give a lot of credit to the food industry, especially in Norway. I think they've been very inviting. They've been early out to kind of acknowledge the problem, and of course I think that's something that's innate with food waste as a problem, because it's also a big economic loss. You know, it's very easy to connect this waste issue to just bad business, you know, and that's why it's kind of been this win-win situation that we could always, you know, we could always find common ground, kind of, you know, to try to reduce it. So, yeah, but there's definitely still room for you know, inviting more innovators along.
Think outside the box.
Of course, always. Mm.
So, the importance of natural resources, it's understood by many now, but what is really the connection and the relationship between food waste and climate? What is the problem with food waste on climate? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. So, food waste is, as an isolated problem, you know, responsible for a whole production line of emissions, basically. You throw away a piece of food, you throw away all the resources that have gone into you know, farming, into what's it called, fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, transportation, packaging, storage, cooling. You know, it's just a crazy addition, and the numbers becomes so gross, if I can use that word, very quickly, that it's really mind-boggling as an isolated problem. So it does, when you do account for this whole value chain, it actually amounts to 12% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So it is the kind of, compared to countries, is the third biggest emitter in the world. And we're talking about the climate crisis, but we also have a biodiversity and nature crisis, and it does waste essentially 30% of the world's agricultural land, which is equally insane, you know. When you think about this, we're actually clearing land still to make room for industrialized farming, and we are throwing away 30% of that land, and it doesn't make any sense at all. So I mean, when you look at it from above, it's kind of it's very easy to get engaged with reducing food waste, I think. Mm.
But we are talking about water, soil, energy, and it's not like we have a lot of that, to be honest. It is, we are already, we already have these resources under pressure. So to produce, you know, when we have these conversations that we're going to need to produce more and more food, we actually throw away a lot. We're using a lot of energy to create something we're throwing away, and we just cannot afford that.
No. And also we need food safety, so throwing away food that's could be eaten, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add on that in terms of, because everybody eats and everybody needs food. And next time you go to the grocery store and have 3 bags of food, think about that we're wasting one of those bags of food every year. And it costs a lot of money. It has a huge impact on the planet and the climate. And if we can prevent and reduce food waste, we can do a lot to help with the UN sustainability goals. Oh, I lost it. Yeah, that I was done.
Agree.
Yeah.
But then, what is the role of the food producers and the food industry and the government in this? Because you can see it from the consumer side, but what can the government do to reduce food waste and help the climate?
Well, in Norway, we are very lucky in terms of an agreement that the food industry and 5 departments of the Norwegian government have signed to reduce food waste by 50% by 2030. This did not happen from one day to the other. It was not easy either, and it's, but it was the industry itself that took the initiative for this, and they did come to this agreement, and it was great because then we kind of have everyone on the same page in this regards, whether it's the authorities or private actors. But there are several countries. I think England also has some sort of commitment. Eventually more and more started joining, so that's really good. I think it's at this point governments cannot continue on ignoring this issue, and we will see more and more countries establishing policies for food waste reduction and prevention of food waste.
Yeah, Charlotte.
You can tell me to shut up. I'm just extremely eager about this topic. But yeah, because we see, like in Norway, for example, we see that the municipalities are doing a lot of good work now and putting food waste specifically as a KPI for them to reduce X amount of food waste within health sector, schools, kindergartens, in the municipality offices. And they're actually doing stuff now and having it more as part of their strategy, and that hasn't been the case previously. And we see countries getting, there will be coming more and more laws on food waste, probably, and more regulations. We see that New York, for example, will have more regulations in 2022. Vancouver, Canada, all of them are doing stuff now to put food waste in strategic decision making. And it's so good to see that the movement of doing something for preventing and reducing this problem is starting to be approached better and better, and more and more.
Yeah, and it can also help the consumers to change their habits as well. When we have more structural change, so it goes both ways.
Yeah, I would say in some cases it is the consumer that has actually vocalized that they want a solution to the problem, and then maybe the government just wants to help them. Yeah. And in other ways, it's the other way around. Yeah.
It goes both ways.
Mm.
Yeah. What about in dumpster diving? Could you get some help from the government?
No, but I was just thinking about what you guys were saying about that Norway is doing a lot. And I've only been doing dumpster diving for a year, and I'm just talking from like the consumer perspective, seeing what each store throws away. And if it's true that Norway has done so much, it's really, really sad, because right now it's still so much thrown away. And I was thinking about a few weeks ago, we were having coffee talking about different things that could be done. And I was just thinking about like taxes on all the food that is thrown away, and also the way it's registered. When we were talking about how if you want to donate food, why isn't that registered as the food that isn't thrown away? And it's so many things that could be changed within the system, in addition to changing like the huge flaws of the system, trying to make it as sustainable as possible.
Well, I think that one thing that Charlotte Lotta mentioned before, this thing, that this system that most supermarkets around the world have, that they actually have to physically go around the store finding, I mean, these barcodes that we all see in the food products, they don't have information about a date of expiry. So this, the staff in the supermarkets have to, you know, physically go around, and it costs more money to have one employee going around for an hour than maybe throw away a bag of food, unfortunately.
And even Amazon has a person, Amazon Go has a person going and looking through the ads for expired products. Wow. Because it's still a manual routine for them. So even in Amazon Go, the technology isn't there where you have technology that helps have that control. So there's still room for improvement. And I just want to add on in terms of there's a lot being done in the food system, and it's good, but there's still a lack of solutions and still a lack of initiatives that are working. So I think that's what's lacking all over the world, basically. There's few solutions that could help this problem, so we need more help. So new entrepreneurs, new innovations, we need a lot more ideas and solutions to the problem to see a reduction faster, basically.
And I think it's also important. Oh, sorry, we're not letting you talk, are we? Sorry. Going back to the dumpsters and the amount of food waste that we can all see out there, we really need to remember that there is that the reason why there is food waste is also very linked to a culture that we have created ourselves. When I see people complaining, for example, that in some countries they sell an apple sliced and peeled inside a plastic container, and that, you know, at first it can make anyone really upset, but then we have to think of the single mom that's taking the kid to the doctor in the middle of the city, and the kid has not eaten anything, is getting really cranky, and for her it's awesome to go into a shop and being able to buy that apple that is ready for the kid to eat and that she doesn't have to wash or anything. We have created a culture where we expect to find avocado, bananas, any kind of fruits and vegetables in our stores. We expect to find this food any time of the year. So it is almost natural that as long as we have that kind of system, there's going to be waste. So it's, yeah, I think so. No?
Bendik?
I think it's very important what you're saying, because it's we have to not get complacent at a too early stage. You know, it's very obvious that anyone engaged with the food industry, working to reduce food waste, can kind of agree that, oh, we're on the right track. You know, it's actually, or the numbers are showing a reduction, and we can be happy about that. But you know, we are talking about crazy numbers. So for the naked eye, kind of meeting these volumes of food, you know, it will still be just a shocking experience, and it definitely is, you know. So I think, as a notion on this, you know, about how we can kind of include date labeling and you know, kind of prevent food waste in that part of the value chain. It's also a question about what kind of food should be date labeled at all, you know, because then we're kind of talking about changing a system that we've created it for a reason. You know, at some point that was what was the general perception of the public, was that food safety, food security, or is it called that? Matsikkerhet? Like, yeah. You know, that what Mattilsynet is working with, kind of preventing people from getting sick, was very important, and obviously it was a focus for the government to kind of adapt this system to the whole food industry. And now, I mean, there was a slot on the national broadcaster last summer with the guy who was responsible for implementing that change, and he was saying he was very regretful about introducing it to dried goods, because he knew that they kind of had educated the whole generation to look at as date labeling on a pack of flour, you know, and throw it in the bin. which is, it can't go bad. Like either you have bugs in it or you don't, you know? And it's very easy to see, you know? But still people just open it, look at the labeling and think, I have no idea. I have no way of knowing whether this is good or bad, you know? And that's obviously a cultural thing. Yeah, I better throw it. So we have a lot of work to do, you know, and it's not about changing within the system. It's like you say, there are major flaws that we need to address as well.
Yeah, and I would just add on in terms of there's so much to do, and kind of the best way to start for anybody to start is just getting more knowledge about the topic, because there's so much, or there's such a lack of knowledge around food waste. Plastic has been mentioned earlier, but if you compare that to food waste, plastic is a small problem in some ways. So and plastic is connected to food waste because we need plastic on the food to keep the food for lasting longer. So it's more of a holistic food system, and that we have to keep in mind that plastic is good for something and bad for other things. Food waste could be prevented, it could be reduced, but it's good that it's also handed over to charities and people that need it. So it's kind of thinking about it in a more holistic way to understand the implications of doing stuff within the food system. As well as just going back to in Norway, for example, we have the fear of expiration dates. In Europe, we only have 2 sets of date labels, expired by and best before. In US, for example, we have over 10 different types of labels. And in Europe, for example, eggs, the label on eggs used to be 48 days. But because Spain, for example, has their eggs in a heated area of the store, not fridged like we do in Norway, we reduced it down to 28 days. And eggs don't go bad, and you smell when an egg is bad. So just use your senses and make sure you kind of test it before throwing it away, because you will, in most cases, not get sick. So just know that it's not, it's not dangerous to taste.
So we need both the knowledge and technology and innovation on more higher levels.
Yes.
Cultural change.
Yeah.
Mm.
So when we talk about consumer habits, we often hear that consumers are the ones that throw away the most food. And how important is the adoption of more sustainable consumer habits, and also going over to a plant-based diet, for example? Is this the only way to make a change?
You can.
Yeah, Eva.
I've been plant-based before I started dumpster diving, and then I figured that since so much was thrown away, that I could try to do that instead. But as a single consumer, I honestly don't think you can do that much of a difference, but it's while you communicate it at the same time. So if you think of why you do the changes that you do, talk with others about why you do them, and then in the end that will affect the corporates around you. So as individuals, I'm thinking maybe not that much of a difference, but if you try to read as much as you can and then act as radical as you can with the resources you have available, and then in the end it can make a big difference. But as individuals alone, you maybe don't manage that much, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Charlotte?
I would just say in terms of food waste, so every research say that the consumer is to blame for the majority of food waste. And that's not that strange, thinking that the consumer is the last step before it turns to animal feed or biogas and stuff like that. So, of course, there will be food waste at the consumer side, because there's lacking a system in the grocery stores, in the restaurants, at the farmer side, producer side. So it's kind of a ripple effect that is getting down to the consumer, and the consumer is getting blamed. I would say that the consumer has a lot of power, and we see that the consumer has more and more power now, and that's why the shift in what the retailers do and the restaurants do is more and more apparent. So I would say even, just one person has a lot to say in the future, and just getting more knowledge about food waste and teaching someone else about food waste will help a lot. And we are so lucky to be in Norway, because we have the availability of huge amount of knowledge and a community, and we're such a small country, so it's not hard to text someone, call someone that has the expertise that you need to get. So we have the right kind of data to go and tell someone else about. So the consumer has a lot of power. Don't underestimate that.
Yeah. Bendik, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely agree. I think it's a complex picture as well, because it's like consumer behavior is obviously key to solving all of these issues. You know, with the example of Too Good To Go, it's like when we started out, there was a general skepticism in the industry with like single stores. You know, that no one would like their kind of second-grade goods. You know, no one would ever buy that. They were kind of seeing it through the veil of the existing paradigm, kind of, and they thought it was trash. You know, if it was a hard crust on that croissant, it was actually waste. You know, and then with this nudge or the shift, or just like actually convincing them that this is goods that people would definitely buy at a reduced price, or if presented to them free, they will definitely eat it, you know, then it kind of becomes the new normal, you know. But I'm also very, I always say that this is like, the consumers can only choose what's presented to them, you know. So they're not going to be a driving factor in that change unless the industry is also actually presenting them with opportunities, you know. So what you are doing is obviously like the super radical version, you know. But if you're in the store and you think, oh, I wish they had more vegan products, but I'll just go with this one because that's what they have, you know. Then it kind of doesn't change anything, you know. So it's definitely not the consumer's responsibility alone. Again, it's like we're in this together. And the industry has to acknowledge their power in steering the consumer's behavior and act on that, you know. They can invite people along on this journey and actually be a driving factor instead of being the clamp. So, and one of my favorite examples is with the single bananas. You know, it was a huge deal some years ago. You know, we throw away so many single bananas. And then you talk to some specific stores and they say, we don't have a problem with it anymore because either we give them away to kids, you know, you put up like, you can have a single banana because you're walking with your parents in the store and you're probably bored and here you have a banana, you know.
Parents are super happy.
Of course.
They're a bit distracted.
Yeah. And then other stores again are like, they've put up a cute sign saying like, oh, I'm looking for someone single, is it you, or something, you know. And then they say that actually fixes the problem, you know. They don't, these unique stores, they don't have that issue anymore. And I think it's ridiculous how easy it is, if that's what it takes, you know. So that's just one example that as a business or as a consumer, you can know as a actor in the food industry, it's kind of your call, you know. Do you want to be a driving factor in that change? Do you want to present the consumers with increased opportunities to make the sustainable choices? Or do you want to kind of just point your finger at them and say, well, you have to demand it, you know. I don't want to change until you go to a different store, you know. That's not good enough, I think. So, I mean, we can do more, all of us, kind of.
I was actually going to say that I think that it's important that we as consumers, we don't underestimate our power. Yes, it's true. We choose what it's been shown to us, given to us, but at the same time, as a vegan of maybe an older age, the rest of the panel, I have been lucky to see the last 10 years of development on this. I still remember when I went to the store and there was no vegan products at all. And then these started growing and growing, and yeah, sometimes it's annoying. I have to send messages to every single supermarket in my town to tell them, can you please take this in? Can you please take that out? You know, but they do it every single time. If I send a message to my local supermarket and I say, oh, I heard about this new product, can you please take it in? They do. But then, if you don't continue buying this, then most likely we'll go out of business. So I think it's very important to not be afraid to have this dialogue with the food industry. Q Meieri dairy from Norway is a very good example of consumer-driven creativity and design. They really listen to the customers a lot, and they really make decisions based on what the consumers are asking for. So don't be afraid of thinking like, "Ooh, the food system." You know, really do get out there and demand the products that you want to see. If you think there's too much plastic, if you think that there is, you know, whatever it is you feel unhappy about your local supermarket, contact them on Facebook and let them know. It works. It works.
Part of a market, and they want to produce the things that we want to buy. So we have something to say there. Yeah, Charlotte.
Yeah, and I think just in terms of the entire value chain, when it comes to sustainability and kind of reducing food waste, it's not just good for the planet, it's so good business, and it's just logic. It's so smart to do it because it benefits. If a grocery store starts doing it, it benefits the entire value chain because the grocery store is connected to the supplier and the farmer and the consumer. So it all has a ripple effect again, but it's so important to know that, whatever you do, even if it feels small, it's better than doing nothing because it's so smart to do sustainable choices, and for your economy at home as well. So it's just smart.
Yeah, but where do you see the biggest challenges for change? Is it in the government? Is it in the industry? Is it the habits and of the consumers? Yeah, or is it most difficult to make change?
It's always hard for people to get out of a habit, but I think the more knowledge people have around the topic, the easier we will get as well. When it comes to, for us as a business, working to prevent food waste for our customers, the challenge is that the system is broken. The value chain, the food value chain is not sustainable. There's a lack of data flowing from the farmer and up to the consumer, which means that we lose a lot of information on the way, which hurts the sustainability of the supply chain. So I would say if we fix the broken system, that would be a good way to start. Yeah,
I agree, and again, it's a cultural question. And it's something that is kind of way beyond any of our single spheres of influence. You know, it's about letting go of that expectation that we can have all the luxuries presented to us at any given time at a bargain price. You know, it's like I think if we actually went through with a big systemic change of, for example, like presenting greens and vegetables in season only, you know, saying you can't have this product because it's not in season, you know, I'm kind of questioning myself whether it would be a huge impact on the quality of my life, you know. I don't have the answer, but I think it's a fun experiment to do with yourself. You know, would I suffer from not putting mangoes on my taco in October? I don't know when mangoes are in season, but anyway. So, no, I don't know exactly. That's a case in point. So it's just a question, you know, and again, I don't have the answer, but I think it will be key to solving the problem, because it is a question of affluence, it is a question of disconnection, of disassociation with how food is being produced, and you know, what we are expecting at any given time.
Yeah, Paula?
Yeah, I think that it's also important to remember that we sit here in our own bubble, that when we talk about the problem of food waste from a more of a global perspective, we see that other parts of the world don't have so much consumer food waste at all. It is almost, you know, I have been trying to tell people in South America, where I come from, about dumpster diving, and they look at you kind of like, well, where I come from, poor people has to do that in order to survive. And you see that if you look a little bit at food culture around the world, there are so many cultures and meals that we enjoy nowadays that actually were created to save something before it was going bad. I can't think of any creative examples right now, but most of our foods are that, you know. It is processes to preserve this food. So I think that then, you know, it's not that these other places in the world don't have food waste. What happens there is that the food system generates more food waste than the consumers. So I think we have to go back to that. It's a complex system with a lot of actors interacting the whole time. So it's really everyone, and communication and technology and information. It really is the key, whatever sector you talk about.
I think Charlotte first.
Yeah, and I would just piggyback on both of you guys in terms of the kind of the variety of food. If you make sure that the food supply or food value chain is more sustainable, you will get even more diversity in the food. Because you would then make sure that even though if a vegetable is crooked and not able to pass the standards for the grocery stores, it will come to the consumer. So you will get more and better for food, local food. You at the end also get cheaper food because you're able to purchase the food as a supplier or as a grocery manager more cheaply if the supply chain actually works to its best of its ability. So making sure that every part of the value chain, every level works as best as it can, most efficient, most profitable, good deals in place, not any crooked deals, which we see a lot in the food system, not just in Norway, but in outside the world as well. There's a lot of challenges and possibilities. At the same time, the value of having a more sustainable supply value chain is so important for the people that are working in the value chain, but also for us as consumers. So yeah, that was it.
Okay, good. So the last question. Public awareness about food waste, action on climate, and also human and animal rights. We are clearly seeing this excelling. And also, the question is if there is enough pressure on the food industry to make a change. Yeah.
I think so. Going back to this of all of the innovation on plant-based products, and also you see a lot in the supermarkets of packaging done with less plastic or with better materials, and companies associating with solutions like Total Control or Too Good To Go. Yes, I see that.
And I would also say that it's different from country to country, that's for sure. It's different if you're a developed country or a developing country. So it's different in the entire world. I would say as we are in Norway, we have kind of worldwide best. And the situation is good, but we still waste 2.2 billion euros worth of food every year. So it's a huge problem in Norway, and $1 trillion euros of food every year globally. So it's a huge, huge problem.
And there's a lot of people, poverty and hunger actually going up, unfortunately. I mean, here in Norway, we have 500,000 people living in poverty. You know, most people don't even know about it.
And the population is growing so fast, so we need to make this more sustainable. That's it. Yes.
I just think it's like your question is there enough pressure? Well, it's very easy to get philosophical about that because we're only moving in the right direction, you know. As I said, I'm or in Too Good To Go, we've definitely profited, you know, as a company and a brand, and we've grown with these initiatives, you know, from the industry. And there is a very general agreement that we need to do something about this problem. And as what started out as a small startup has actually grown into a bit on the invitation of these actors, you know, because they see that this actually benefits our business as well, to this issue. But you use the word enough, and then it's very easy to say it's not nearly enough, because it's we are still throwing away way too much food. That's the end of it. And as a single consumer, you know, seeing the shocking amounts that goes into dumpsters every single day, there is no good reason for that. You know, there is a good explanation with the solutions that we present, and I think when we kind of, since we're a bit unclear about like the global or region perspective, because they're different, you know. I think it's just, it becomes even like exponential complex thing when you start talking about the global food systems, you know, and these crooked value chains interacting with corruption and interacting with breach of human rights and distribution of wealth. That is, you know, really not good or planet, and you know, it kind of becomes too big of a question to tackle in this kind of panel, you know. But we need to, we just need to, or for me at least, yeah. But yeah, keep on pushing. These small nudges will, at some point, take us there. And with the climate, we're always talking about tipping points. There will be a tipping point towards the sustainable food industry as well, because at one point, you will see that it's not something that's just it's not corporate social responsibility. It will just be so good for business to actually reform. You know, so yeah. I think that's the best thing we all can do, like right at this moment. But yeah, it's not enough. We need more, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. But are you hopeful? Are you hopeful that we're on a way to a more sustainable future in food?
Yeah, I think there's no way back.
Yeah.
No. Too many people know too much and wants better. So it's no way back. Point of no return.
I agree. And we also have great people like you working from different sides of the system to push, so that's good. Thank you. Yeah, I think we have some questions for you guys, from you guys watching. So, do you want them? You can ask.
Okay, so we have one question, and I think this one is for all of you. And this one is, are there companies, means your companies, an organization, I guess, as well, working with social organizations to help people who can afford having a meal a day get it?
Yes, we are. As I said before, I think that the whole the way we look at this is to move food from where there is too much of to where there is not enough of. Unfortunately, we see that globally hunger continues on increasing when it was going in a good direction, and unfortunately the last few years show that it continues on increasing. So we really need to keep this in mind, because it also shows us how unsustainable the food system is. We produce enough food to feed everyone that is hungry in the world. Is it 1.5 times? It's more than once, actually. So there's obviously a need of redistributing this food from a sustainability and resource use point of view. It's super important that we focus in not generating all of this surplus food, all of this food waste first. But I do think that redistribution of surplus food to those that unfortunately don't have access to the food system is definitely a solution. We, the organization that I represent, we have 7 food banks in the whole country, and we work together with more than 200 charity organizations that help people in need. And last year, we redistributed food equivalent to more than 5 million meals. And we only grab we only rescue like less than 3-4% of all the surplus food available, and that's as many meals you can make with that. So it's definitely a solution when you start looking at this problem in all, not just environmental and economical, but also from the social aspect. So I hope that there's more and more solutions like this.
Yeah, sorry. I would just add in terms of Paula and the food banks, they have great connections to the kind of the European food bank systems. So whatever they do affects what the other food banks does as well. And for like Too Good To Go and us, we work tightly with the food banks and the food waste network which we have in Norway and across borders as well to get the most information and to share knowledge and help in any way possible. I would say our solutions are more for developed countries than developing countries. So we're not directly doing anything for people starving in that way. But yeah, what we do here has an effect on what happens there later as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, when we were talking before about the sustainability of the food system, I think that this is key to understand that it does not mean that because I throw away a meal at home, a kid in Africa won't have, like they used to tell us when we were kids and so on. It's not that direct, but it's not that far off either. We have the responsibility to have a good and efficient use of resources because it does affect everyone involved in that supply chain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add from Too Good To Go's perspective, this is like, we have this close cooperation in Norway, and it's even more important in a lot of the other European countries. And Too Good To Go just launched in the US, and there is a totally different kind of mindset around this, because they have huge challenges with poverty and with food insecurity, and they have people living, close to each other, but with, again, a very uneven distribution of wealth. So it is, it's kind of a luxury to address the food waste issue in a country like Norway, where we can, it's not the truth, because people are hungry here as well, and we know that, but the general public kind of is well fed, and we are economically well off, So kind of, I think for everyone engaged with food waste and reducing food waste, this principle of food banks first is a very good guidance, that you should adapt your business model to never take anything away from food banks. Because if you generate a profit from actually excluding people that need that surplus food, or taking it away from them in these things, then it's a very it becomes a very complex matter, and it's not exactly the ethical choice.
And I would like to add that those using Too Good To Go app, they should not be worried that they are taking the food from the poor, because actually you can also donate money to the food bank through the app and support, and they do a lot actually. It's a really good collaboration. So it's a lot of ways to help out people who have better access to food.
And now we have one more question to Eva. And this one is, what legal changes need to be done before anyone could do dumpster diving like you do?
Yeah, well, when it comes to how legal it is, it's something about property rights, so that the store actually owns their own trash. So when you take their trash, you're kind of taking their belongings, but it's no one that really follows it. I've never heard about anyone getting fined or anything. So I'm a bit unsure about how the laws actually are, because it's never been a case where it's actually been followed. But as I've understood, per definition, it is the store that owns their own trash. But I still think people should dumpster dive.
If I may I add something here? I think that the problem, or if there was a challenge, to not call it a problem, the challenge with dumpster diving is that dumpster diving depends on all of the other consumers having the behavior they have. When we start, hopefully, when we start having a more sustainable consumption habits, a more sustainable food system, we won't have so much food out there. But the question was saying what changes would be needed so that we can all be dumpster divers. Well, that just wouldn't work, because if anyone, just got their food for free, then no one would be buying it, and then the shops would get out of business. So it's a very complex. I think it's a great example to show us the unsustainability of the food system. But we should aim, just like we should aim at, I hope that someday we don't need any more food banks, because both there is no food to redistribute that is thrown away, and there is no people being hungry. I think it's the same case with dumpster diving. I do hope that in the future we don't need people to do that, actually.
Yeah, but then also to say that if everyone dumpster dives, then no one will buy food. That's why that's like similar to saying if everyone were vegan, what are we going to do? That would be a massive problem.
No.
Because it's as if not everyone will turn dumpster divers by tomorrow. It's like if more and more people start dumpster diving, then the store won't throw away, and then yeah,
but understand that the food waste is a problem, like Charlotta probably can add a lot about, and I see that she's eager to. It's a problem of prognosis and prediction of consumption. So when a shop, a supermarket knows exactly what kind of food, or at least they choose an amount of food they want to bring to the store every week. When suddenly there's one dumpster diver, another dumpster diver, another dumpster diver, actually, in a very indirect way, it could even contribute to even more food waste creation, because the supermarket didn't expect a new dumpster diver there. So they brought the same amount of food that they were going to sell any other week. So it's a very, very, this complexity of the food system goes for everything.
Yeah, but that's given that it's a huge amount of people that does it, and it's not. And that's why...
How many students are you in Oslo now?
In the Facebook group?
No, that are using this food sharing thing.
We are 20 people, and who are going to 7 different stores and collecting the leftover foods. And then we are giving it out to students through a Facebook group. So it's like there's a lot of people that get a little bit from it, but it's not really... in the big picture notable. It's more like a way of activism to show the issue.
Yeah, and there is...
And that's why more people should do it, in other places as well, to show how big of an issue it is, so that, by visualizing, you see the issue, and then you can start working more.
Yeah, but for sure it's enough food, eh? I'm not saying there's not. I'm sure a lot of students could live, maybe all students in Norway could live with that, with the amount of food waste we have. But I agree with that. I think it's a very good symbol of what's happening.
Yeah, and I would just add on. I think for both me and Paula, I would say that we like that it's done to prove a point that food waste is a problem. I would say if more people dumpster dive, it would affect the economy of the country. It would definitely do that. Let's say half the country gets food for free.
Yeah, but that's not realistic.
Yeah, but kind of encouraging people to dumpster dive isn't solving the food waste problem. That's more kind of where I'm getting at here. Because people think about money. And they think about saving money and using money to go to holidays instead of purchasing food. So it could be a dangerous effect of encouraging more and more dumpster divers if we can prevent it from even happening, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I see that, I think it's kind of, because I used to work in grocery stores and I hated seeing food being wasted, but we hadn't there was no solution for us to give it to charities. So I would prefer it to be dumpster divers to get it than not being eaten. But it's a bit dangerous to have even more dumpster divers if we could actually prevent food waste from happening and use our time and resources to create solutions for prevention instead of building more on the fact that we have a problem, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, yeah.
Again, I think there will never be one solution to this problem. You know, there will be a million different approaches and a million different niches for people to operate in, and together it might actually prove successful. You know, and I think for this case, I think it's also very important to kind of you know, give praise to you guys, because you are kind of you're the, if you don't mind me saying, you're kind of the last resort, you know. It's like everything goes wrong, and then thanks, yeah, like, okay, great, you're actually there to pick it up again. Like, in my mindset, it's kind of, it's gone too far, you know, or not because I wouldn't eat it, but like in the segment that I work, we kind of see the dumpster as the enemy, you know, like if it goes in the dumpster, something has gone wrong, you know, and then I can be super grateful that you're there to pick it out. But again, the greatest test for anyone engaging in whatever issue, you know, is to kind of work to go out of business. You know, I always think about that. Oh, okay, if you're kind of actually working to eliminate what you are working within, that is kind of it's not good for business, obviously, or I don't see it happening anytime soon. There's more than enough food waste to go around, and we can all be very feel safe a couple of years in the future for our jobs, but and your activity on your free time. But the thing is that when you can, again, with the Hawkeye view, you know, we would like to see this problem be eliminated, you know, and we need every angle of approach available to solve it, and I don't see any time in the foreseeable future that's gonna change. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Maybe kind of soon to having the dumpster divers be more involved would be take the food that you have and create your own charity, or do something to distribute it to the ones that need it even more than the students, if that makes sense. So gonna do something that's helpful, but not encourage people that have it good enough, if that makes sense, because food waste is an issue. Last resort should be giving it to the people that really, really don't afford food. And then you as students, for example, have the resources to use your brain and your creativity in a way to solve the problem and help others instead of helping yourself, if that makes sense. Even though I think, as Bendik mentioned, dumpster diving is good because that's the last result. So, yeah, last end. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's more that could be done, especially when we know that a lot of people are hungry in Norway as well, or outside.
Yeah, and the goal shouldn't be that we dumpster dive, but at least I think it's important that we do it until the issue is solved. Like, I've never eaten as much bananas, avocados, mangoes, and like really luxury goods, like very good Norwegian salmon that is thrown away all the time. And at least from my point of view, I see it as better that we take it than no one. And of course, I see the bigger picture where it's, as I said, not realistic that half Norway gonna go dumpster diving tomorrow, because that's become a hip thing, because it's not.
Yeah, but you don't need half of the country to dumpster dive to start disrupting the food system through dumpster diving. And as Charlotte says, maybe even underestimating the problem of food waste, and instead of putting the energy on trying to solve that problem, getting stuck in a comfortable situation.
Yeah, and just as you mentioned, you're eating more healthy, you're eating more quality food. think of all the people that need it more than you do, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Think of all the elderly food that could be better, all this kindergarten food, all the homeless people. So I think just, it's good, but just think of, you could do even more and have more of an impact on others that may need it even better, or more, yeah.
I just want to add, like, from my perspective, I think it's great, and I don't want to kind of say to anyone doing, I'm very confident you're doing it for the right reasons. The way you've organized yourselves, the way you're communicating it is obviously for the right reasons, and I think anyone putting their energy in any aspect of this is great. You know, it's super. Or I get super uncomfortable if people say, "Oh, you're working with food waste, but what about solving a real issue? Like, you know, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, plastic pollution. You know, why are you not spending your time cleaning beaches? And it's kind of the same thing. We're just because we are all experts in our niche, in our segment of the food of the value chain. And I just think that we just need to get everyone on board. You know. So, I think we can.
I have to say that
it got us fired up.
Yes, that was nice.
Thank you very much. This was a very, very good discussion. I wish more of us would have these kind of discussions at home. I think I'm going to go to my collective and reunite my friends who I live with and be like, okay, what about this in the fridge that is about to go bad? Whose is that? So, yeah, very inspiring. We have these T-shirts that are made from recycled plastics, part of it. And the other one is from recycled cotton as well, from what I heard. So, if you can help me handing that out.
Thank you.
And for those of you watching us, thank you very much. And we wish you a good night. Thank you.